Well, India's home services space is getting a 10-minute makeover. And no, it's not food or groceries this time. Pronto, which is the real-time household help app, has just raised $11 million in a Series A funding round. And over the next 12 to 18 months, it will expand beyond Gurgaon into Mumbai, Bengaluru, and other metros to set up micro-hubs across key residential clusters to guarantee sub-10-minute fulfillment at scale. And joining us today is founder and CEO Anjali Sardana to unpack the business model of the company. Anjali, thank you very much for your time here on CNBC-TV18. For decades, finding domestic help in India has very much been about having your informal networks and also luck. Now, Pronto is promising to, provide trained help in 10 minutes. What does it take, both operationally and financially, to compress a system that was once so uncertain into something dependable?
Yes. So I think the key thing is the main way people have approached formalizing and building a business around the sector has been to be an Uber-style matching platform. And we realized very quickly that that isn't sufficient here, right? That's not, you require much more operational control over your labor supply chain end to end. And so that means, in-house doing the recruiting, onboarding, training, performance management, all of that is done in-house and requires a huge amount of effort from the team and really rigor in making sure that every step of that process, we maintain a super high standards.
Well, you've just raised this $11 million to build what you call is going to be a new layer of urban infrastructure. Break that down for us. How do you plan to deploy this capital and where will investors expect returns? Expansion, tech, or team?
Yeah, so this is largely going to be used for geo expansion into cities, including Bombay and Bangalore. We currently operate only in Gurgaon, and so this will be primarily used for opening up across the country. And with that requires expansion of the team, right? We have field operators in every hub that we set up. We have a central control tower team. All of that has to expand as we expand geographically.
This plan to make household help really a high-frequency service for users, just like groceries or cabs. Is Pronto sticky enough, you think, to be a daily line item for urban families in India?
Yes, a huge number of our customers are using us every single day. And so we already see a very high repeat frequency among our customer base, and really people treating this as, a utility. I mean, in the end, this is a necessity on a day-to-day for most urban households, and it's not a once a week or once a month use case. It's an everyday use case. And so we've already seen that demand pattern emerge.
Well, guaranteeing the sub-10-minute fulfillment while also offering workers some predictable shifts, it's quite the promise, but it also sounds very expensive. Is there a market or a need you see for 10-minute fulfillment for house help? And how quickly do you plan to scale the service?
I mean, it is absolutely, there's absolutely demand for 10 minutes. As we've seen, the higher frequency with which you're able to hit the 10-minute SLA actually has a flywheel effect where more people are booking that. Because if you're actually able to hit it, then customers build trust in your ability to be there in 10 minutes and rely on that rather than having to schedule ahead the booking. And so we've seen a huge amount of demand for that 10 minutes or less. And it's been ever increasing. And in terms of, expansion, we have built sort of the modularized version of Pronto in which we can deploy it into new geographies. And so we've been able to, in the last few weeks, expand very quickly into new areas of Gurgaon. Like we've, in the last 1 month, almost doubled our service area without too much strain on operations. And so, we figured out how to essentially how to deploy the playbook into more and more micro markets.
Anjali, you're talking about micro hubs, last mile operations, shift logistics. All of this sounds a lot like hyperlocal delivery businesses. How similar is the cost structure and what is different in terms of margins and workforce management as well?
Yeah, I mean, the cost structure is very different. So let's talk about CapEx first. So if you're opening a dark store, investment is required because there's infrastructure within the store, there's and there's working capital required for inventory. And so that is not a factor in our business, right? Our hubs are simply just like rooms that are air conditioned, and there isn't a huge amount of shelving or any infrastructure needed there. And so the CapEx required to open a hub is significantly lower, and that means that less investment or less capital is required for expansion than say for your quick commerce businesses.
You're a very new business, of course, but what is the roadmap for profitability in that case?
Certainly not profitable today. Obviously, as we expand, there's a large amount of investment that's required. And especially as we're expanding to new geographies. In the run up to that, you have to build up your supply pool in order to deploy that into new areas, and that obviously takes money in order to do that, as well as building the brand and marketing for the first time and getting Pronto's name out there. That all requires marketing spend, as well as the HQ team, right? And if you think about your HQ, that's where you get operating leverage from as you scale. Right? Your percent of revenue that you take for your engineering team is obviously going to be very high, over 100% now. Or actually isn't over 100%, but like in general, your HQ team is where you'll see a lot of operating leverage going forward, and that impacts your EBITDA margin today. So EBITDA, very EBITDA negative today, but over time, we think, I don't see us, getting to profitability in the next 2 years, but within 5 years, ideally, we'll be EBITDA positive.
Well, finally, let me ask you, what really keeps a competitor from copying this tomorrow? Because this is a space where we're hearing of players like Urban Company come up with something similar. And of course, there is this huge informal market that already exists. So how will Pronto protect itself?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things here. One is that, we have laser focus on this business, and, we built our business model from first principles. And with that, I describe Pronto's operations as a 1,000-piece machine, and we understand, of those 1,000 pieces, what are the 50 most important, and of the 50, what's the 5, and of the 5, what's the single most important piece, and that is allowing us to, execute better. And I think in general, like what keeps this business moated is just like there is a high capital barrier to entering this, right? And so there's going to be a limited set of companies that are going to be able to acquire the capital in order to enter the market. But in addition, like long term, what determines the winner is going to just be operational rigor and execution, and just focus on this.
Well, Anjali, that's quite the interesting service you're building, and it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for your time here today on Startup Street.